Hey everyone, welcome to today's video where we're going to be going over the exclusive right to sell residential for the Colorado contracts. It's the 2026 calendar year. They just were updated, so let's get started. Um, as you might have seen some of the other videos, I'm not trying to make this a bullet trail type of training. This is more how to fill out the exclusive right to sell. But I did promise everyone as we kind of get new to or get used to bullet trail, I wanted to kind of show you guys how I've been I guess getting familiar with bullet trail and what kind of my common practices are. So if you notice here, I've logged into the front end of the CRM, and I'm going to go ahead and get into the back end of the CRM. So you need to get into the back office in order to create a transaction. And so this is the CRM where you house all your contacts. There's multiple different ways to get into the back end and start that deal. I think I've made a little bit extended version of the contract to buy and sell real estate residential. So for today, we're going to just go in here through the search bar. If you don't see it populate under my products, just go ahead and search it, back office, and it should pull right up for you. If you're not seeing that this is underneath your license or your product page saying owned, please reach out to us at the office so we can see about getting that rectified for you. So go ahead and click on that. If you notice, it keeps the tab open for the CRM, and then it opens up the back office or the transaction portal here. Don't worry about everything that you see here. I do have an admin account, but let's pretend that this is something that you are working on with your brand new buyer. And so I want to show you guys how to create from scratch that transaction. So go up here and hit create transaction. I'm working with a brand new buyer. We don't have any like property identified, so we're not going to use the MLS search, but it's a pretty cool tool. Just click on it, find your MLS. It kind of pre-populates some things for you, helps you with some data entry, but perfectly fine to do create new. Come up here to type. We're going to go ahead and click on traditional sale. If you are looking at some of these other options over here, you might reach out to me for help on that. But most of the time, we're probably going to be using a traditional sale. I apologize. This could be a rough video. Status. This again, this is kind of going to be dependent upon where you're at in the process. But like I'm writing an exclusive right to. I think I said sell and buy. Let's establish this. This video is all about the exclusive right to sell. We're doing a traditional sale. And if I'm starting to work with a seller, I don't know if their house is, active on the market, however you're looking at, certainly not pending. And so it's more of an opportunity in my mind for that type of thing. And now watch when you click here, if I click on seller, it is going to require me to go ahead and put in a few fields. If you click on buyer, it makes only the transaction name the required thing. So I'm going to make this kind of a dummy account. This would be one of my old properties. Transaction name. So again, if it's a seller, I'm probably advising you guys to go ahead, as you see over here on this side of the screen, where the addresses are first and prominent. It really does help the compliance manager at the office figure out some things. And honestly, it'll help you guys as you guys navigate through your own, systems and everything like that to kind of identify different transaction types. And then, I personally am liking to put the last name of the client at the end of the address. I think that's a beautiful way of doing it. Again, just kind of helps all fronts. This would be for how you're going to be listing the property or what type of price point you are. If you don't have a price point yet, let's say this is still something in the air that you're negotiating with your clients, it's okay to change this down the road. Go ahead and put your price point in that you think that they should list for, or maybe you already have it locked in and have a verbal agreement. For the sake of this video, I'm just going to show you that there are many different fields that you guys can put in here. And obviously, if I was slowing down and working through this, it's going to be a benefit on all fronts and all aspects to get all this stuff dialed in that you can. But for the sake of the video, we're just going to look at how to fill this out. Again, with commissions, you might have that dialed in, you might not. Make sure that you understand how to select these. This would be the total commission. This would be split between yourself, right? You're the listing side with First Realty and Associates. And then you got the buy side transaction. Again, some of this stuff may not be known at this point. And then seller, we got to find a seller in here. And so let me see if I like to use Blake Smith as a kind of a dummy account. So fictitious person, but let's pretend like that is our seller. I've already got an email address in there for him. If you're adding a client from here, you can add seller. And then once you start typing, let's go Brian Smith. What you'll notice is that you have to create new, and then it's going to ask you for some of those other pieces. Very important in my world to make sure I have a email address in there. That way, when I send it out for signatures, I know where it's going. So don't add a contact without that email for sure. Obviously, if you have more details, the better off your CRM is going to be, look, and be more robust. So we're going to continue on with just one seller, Blake Smith. We're going to continue. And then this is, something I mentioned in the other videos. If you guys are ever looking to know how to do a referral, you'll notice on the transaction type at the beginning of this, it was traditional sale. There was no such thing as a referral. So this is where you do a drop-down menu to get your referral checklist. But for the sake of this video, we're going to be looking at listing the property. This is maybe our target listing date. And so let's pretend if I'm working on this for a seller that's going live maybe next Friday. Hit create. All right, and if I were to put in all of those details, they would start showing up here. So yours should be left as blank as mine is, but again, we're just looking to get at this contract to fill it out. We're going to go down here to documents. And then this is a list of different things that you're going to need to submit to the office. Obviously, you're not going to have to submit every single thing. But what we're looking for is exclusive right to sell listing contract. Go ahead and click use forms. If you do have a different contract system where you're using, DocuSign or Dotloop or SkySlope or one of those guys for signatures, none of this stuff is probably really super relevant for you because I'm going to show you guys all how to use our own Bold Trail back office signature page and how to fill out these documents. So it already has the exclusive right to sell listing there. And if you click next, going to just ask for what's going on with, who's going to be on this document. So you added contacts before, but now it's going to ask for signatures or parties that are going to be signing, if you will. So we don't have a second seller. Yes, delete the signer fields for the second seller. That's fine with me. I am the broker for this particular thing. You are the broker too, so you don't have to put my name down. You're the agent. I know it says broker, but you are the associate broker on the file. And so it's not asking for a managing broker there. So go ahead and select your name, got my seller's name, click next. All right, something I want to mention before we really go through this is I'm going to go through this in pretty detailed content, but not a full detail. And what I mean by that is there's going to be different sections in here, such as maybe section 4. I'm just going to tell you what it looks like a little bit, but at the end of the day, I'm not going line by line through these contracts. This is a video for how to fill it out. But one thing I'm going to do once I fill this out for you guys, I'm going to go ahead and save this as a PDF. And when I send out these videos, I'm going to go ahead and send you the PDF. So maybe the first time you're watching the video, great. It'll slow you down a little bit. You can pause it, speed me up. I know I ramble. And ultimately, you shouldn't have to watch these videos too many times because I'm going to have a printed PDF template for you as well. So that way you type A's of the world don't have to listen to me ramble. You can just get right into it. All right, without further ado, let's get into this. So why am I creating these videos, right? I've created videos every time that the contracts have been updated. And as you can see, this is mandatory use date as of this year, January 1st, 2026. It is April. I am delayed on making these videos. A lot of times, you guys, I like to wait till it's very similar to like, what do I want to say? Great example would be a cell phone update. So if you ever have, I'm on Apple, so I'm just going to use that as an example. We ever have updates to our iOS system. Sometimes that first iOS system update isn't exactly what Apple wanted. And so, not to say I've tried to wait 3 months to get this video out, but ultimately, once they pumped these new contracts out, I wanted to make sure there was no reiterations and things like that. This does take me quite a bit of time to, go over, make sure I know it, verbatim, like the back of my hand, so that way you guys can absolutely call me and ask me questions. But more than anything, I want to be clear and concise for these videos. So this is one of the newest things that you're going to notice that has changed is they've added and expanded onto the Colorado Real Estate Commission's language about what it looks like at the top of any of their CREC approved documents will have this type of style now. All right, let's get into it. So when it comes to filling out this exclusive right to sell listing contract, I would say maybe 90, 95% of the time, you're always going to be a seller's agent. Very few times would you ever run into a transaction broker type of relationship. If you're not sure, reach out to me, reach out to Joanne, or reach out to somebody at the office so we can kind of help guide you. But for the sake of this video and for the template that I really want you to have, let's get into seller's agency. The date, this is just simply filling out the date that you're actually filling out the contract. It doesn't have to be the date your seller is actually signing. So I'm just going to go ahead and put in today's date. But obviously, if you're working on this, put in a relevant date that you're working on. We are a multiple person firm, so for First Realty and Associates, we have multiple different licensees, so always select section 2.1. Seller, like I said, I know we're using Blake Smith as our example, but for the template, for the PDF print off that I want you to have, I absolutely need you to just kind of have a template. So I'm going to say, use what is in the all right, so I'm saying public website, or the county website versus Realist or the MLS. You guys will probably hear my spiel in some other videos too. Using what is in the MLS or Realist is actually not true public records. Public records actually comes from the county website. And so sometimes there is some misinformation. And so best in all times, in all practices, to use the county's website. I'm not even saying that's 100% guaranteed accurate, but it is the most accurate that we can get to without having some liability on our side of things. Brokerage firm, we are First Realty and Associates. Now I say and, but it is First Realty Associates, Inc., period. Broker, this would be you, so fill in your name. All right, when it comes to the property, go ahead and put the county, you know, whatever's applicable. This property that we're using is actually in Boulder County, so just put that in there. And I think we really need to make sure you guys get one of the biggest things that I think I see agents kind of mess up a little bit is not looking at the county website. I know it's so easy to look at what public or what the MLS has, or, you know, different things of that nature. So I'm going to say whatever is in public records or order O&E report. If you need to know what an O&E report is, reach out to your local title rep. They'll be glad to sit down with you and talk to you about that. It costs $5. But that would be the only other way that I am comfortable gaining the legal description for the property. Over here, you're just going to put the common address or the mailing address. I'm just going to use 123. Actually, I did. So on and so forth. Let's keep going. Something about initials. If the document has initials, as far as a spot for initials at our office, we do require them. If this contract were to populate with this was not populated, or maybe you received something from another agent, more than likely, that doesn't have seller initials or any initials, I guess, called out, you don't have to put them on there. But since this document does, we're going to go ahead and put it out there. And if you notice, the system, and this is why I love Bold Trail so much, pre-populates all of that. And so just double check, click on it, make sure it's actually your seller that's going to be initialing and not you as the broker. So as you can see, it just changes colors. I wish it would kind of designate whether that was like, you know, the seller or the broker, but you'll get the hang of it. Go ahead and make sure that the seller is there. It usually populates correctly, but you never know. All right, when it comes down to filling out this contract, we're going to kind of whiz through some sections, but we're going to slow down on some other sections. When it comes to affordable housing, obviously, if you're getting into that, you probably want to give me a call. So make sure you select that box. Obviously, if you're not in affordable housing, don't select that box. And that kind of leads me to the point of a lot of my videos and a lot of the soapboxes that I jump on. If you ever see a section that has a checkbox to the left, and that section is applicable, you must select that checkbox in order to make that clause applicable. I personally have an issue with that, and mainly just simply because if you're going to go ahead and make some sections need that checkbox checked, why not make all sections like 3.7? We don't have a left-hand checkbox. So I know as a new agent, it can be very, kind of confusing as to why some of this stuff is the way it is. I'm not really sure. I'm not on that part of the commission, but I do know that it's an annoyance in my world. But more than anything, I just want to slow down and tell you guys, we all make mistakes. We all miss these check boxes, but do your best to slow down, read these contracts, know what you're filling out. You guys are getting paid a lot of money to help a transaction move forward. And I know for some of us, we haven't had a transaction in a while. We need money. Our time is of the essence, trying to get our buyers or sellers out there. Slow down. It's in your best interest to make sure everything's buttoned up right. This is your license on the line. So slow down. If you do have that left-hand checkbox and it's applicable, go ahead and click that. Section 3.6.2. This box is selected. The seller authorizes broker to negotiate a lease of the property. So if you don't, if the property that you're selling doesn't have any sort of lease agreement to it, then you're not going to select that. If it does, go ahead and select that. As far as the listing period goes, it should probably begin the day that you're filling this out. So today would be April 17th. The other option would be to maybe put the date that you're going to be meeting with the seller. So maybe I'm meeting with the seller over this weekend, say, on the 19th. Happy birthday to Karen in our office and Sherry in our office. Sherry's birthday is actually today, April 17th, and Karen's birthday is on April 19th. Happy birthday to those wonderful ladies. But more than anything, the other option that you have is, I already said it. Yeah, you can fill it out for today, and you can fill it out for the time that you're meeting with the seller. So for the sake of the video, I'm just going to put let's see if that. There we go. That'd be a good template. And then when it comes to the end of this, I personally would never list a property for less than 3 months, and that even makes me squirmy saying that. So I like to do anywhere between 6 to 12 months would be the ending timeline on most all seller listing agreements for me. Compensation period of days. I'm not going to read this through. You guys will understand this. It just basically says it's a date or deadline should fall on a weekend or holiday. Will it proceed or will it not extend to the next business day? I'm a will person. I don't want anything to fall on a weekend or a holiday. You never know what I'm doing. You never know what my clients are doing. You never know what the other side's doing. So just my little 2 cents on that. But obviously, you can have your own opinion. That's why there's another option there. Broker's relationship. So there's not a whole lot I want to talk about in here. Really, this just spells out exactly how we're doing it. But I do want to talk about this checkbox here. Seller's agency only. I would say more often than not, you don't ever really need to select this checkbox. The only time that I ever have felt that I needed to select this checkbox is when I'm listing my own property. I know we have a couple of agents in our office right now who are listing a couple of their own rental properties, their own personal properties. You can't be a transaction broker if you're listing your own property. You have to be an agent for yourself. And so that would be a time that would be selected. The only other time that would be selected would be if you're working with a very direct relation of you, a mother, a father, a child, your spouse. If they live with you, you better make sure you're a seller's agent. You can't be a neutral party to some of the best people in your life. Even best friends. If I sold my best friend's house, it would be impossible for me to be a transaction broker or a non-biased party because I want to see my best friend win. And so I would always be a seller's agent in that situation. Broker's duties, there's not anything to fill out here except for in 5.7. This says, seller does or does not consent that the broker, disclosure to prospective buyers and cooperating brokers the existence of other offers. So this is just more of you having a conversation with your seller, and it sounds a little like this. Mr. and Mrs. Seller, hey, as we receive offers, personally, you have the right to tell me whether or not we can share that information with the other, interested parties. And so do you have any thoughts on that? Do you have any ideas? Most likely the seller is going to ask you for your opinion, and I'll just give you mine. Mine is that I do not want the seller's permission. Okay, so here's a good example. So that looks like I would need to fill that in because it's yellow. If you want to fill it in right now, go ahead and switch that to fill in now, and then you'll be able to check the box. So I personally like to tell my sellers that I don't want to disclose to prospective buyers whether or not there's an offer until we receive our first offer. If we receive our first offer and there's strategy behind telling a different party whether or not we have it, then I'm going to, go through that with my seller. Nothing I need to change on here, but that's just my strategy. If you guys want to ever, pick my brain about why I do that, you're welcome to call me. But for the sake of this video, I'm going to go ahead and keep moving on. When it comes to compensation, this might be something that you guys all call me on. For the sake of the video, I want this to be a very neutral video. I know that I have a lot of agents in my life that like some of the things that I put out from different companies, and so I am a big fan of making sure I'm compliant, and I don't want to price fix or whatever that's called when we talk about commissions. And so when it comes to the sales compensation, I just want you to know that this is the total of what your seller is willing to pay out as far as the sales compensation goes. And then this is what the, I think it'll be too long. This would be the buyer's agent compensation. So what happens is you have a total up here, and then out of that total, your seller should be awarding, or not should be, but you should talk about what your seller might want to award to a buyer's agent. They can go from 0 all the way up to, whatever they want. So anyways, I'm just going to keep it at that neutral place. Total compensation up here, buyer's agent compensation here. There is no designation for a listing agent's compensation. So your listing agent compensation will be the total minus whatever the buyer's agent compensation is, and then you get the remaining. So do the math and you'll know exactly what you're going to get paid. Lease compensation, I personally don't know if there's many people in our office who are equipped to handle commercial leases, but if you are, you know how to do this. And so for the sake of this video, we're talking with agents that probably aren't in the commercial realm, and so we're going to skip right over this lease compensation area. Other compensation is a big one that a lot of agents use. Some agents do, some agents don't. But this is where I would say list your PC or admin or document retention fee. You name it however you want. I think that some of those fees I've seen as low as $200 all the way up to about $795, I think is the tallest I've seen. If you really want to know what I'm seeing just in the industry, and this isn't, me stating what the industry average is, but the average that I see that comes across my plate is around that $400 to $500 mark. Any sale or lease within the blank property. So this is called a holdover clause, and you'll see this in the exclusive right to buy as well. If I'm using a holdover clause, which I do probably 95% of the time, I do a minimum of 90 days. You obviously can do 30 days, you can do 60 days, you can do 120 days, you can do 59 days if you want. My rule of thumb is about 90 days. If I'm doing a holdover period, then I absolutely am going to commit the seller to owing me a compensation. If you don't know what a holdover period is, you can reach out. I'm happy to help you understand that. All right, section 9.1, we've got to start selecting some check boxes and just slow down, read this, understand what your seller's situation is. I'm going to fill this out to the point where I, use it most often. So the property will be submitted to one or more MLSs, so RE Colorado, IRS, like that, and will be submitted to one or more property information exchanges. And what is that? Those are third-party websites like Zillow, Trulia, Redfin, and Realtor.com. So I like mine to syndicate to it everywhere, but sometimes your seller will have a different opinion. Seller authorizes the use of electronic and all other marketing materials except. Most often this is left blank, but sometimes your seller has something they don't want to be marketed on the Open MLS. So I'm not going to go ahead and put anything in here as far as the example goes, but just know that you will need to fill that out when applicable. The property address will be displayed on the internet. Pretty hard to have a buyer figure out if they want to buy it if it's not displayed. However, there is a reason for that will not checkbox, and those are very, very one-off situations. So give me a shout if you have a seller that's really not looking to market their address for different reasons. Property listing will be displayed on the internet. Again, just different reasons for different folks. But obviously, if you have all of these boxes on your will, I truly believe that that is the best way to get that property information advertised to the highest degree, if you will, online. To hopefully pull in those buyers to get your seller most amount of money, least amount of time, least amount of hassle. All right. Section 921, broker may access the property by, what are you using? Are you using manual lockbox, electronic lockbox, such as Sentry lockbox? Are you using the front door code that the seller has on the property? Most often than not, in my business, I use a manual lockbox. And then other instructions, I don't know. Obviously, you could probably put in whatever you want here. I personally put in the lockbox number. Don't ever put your lockboxes 1, 2, 3, 4. But whatever it is, I like to put it in there. It keeps it on the same page with my seller, so if they ever need it, it's there. If I ever need to know what lockbox I put on, anyway, there's a lot of rule of thumbs around lockbox and lockbox codes. 5280 is probably not the best code to use. I know there's a lot of agents that use it, and so step tap and make it strategic and go from there. Actively licensed, who's going to be authorized to see this property? I think actively licensed real estate brokers are probably a pretty good assumption that your sellers would be okay with. Licensed appraisers as well. I don't know if they want unlicensed brokers' assistance. Sometimes sellers do, and sometimes they don't. Let's just keep moving on. Unlicensed inspectors, I don't like this. I don't like this at all. I wish that if they had an unlicensed inspector checkbox, they would also just put in a certified inspector checkbox. So every single inspector in the state of Colorado and nationwide, there is no such thing as a licensed inspector. They're actually certified inspectors. And so they can only gain a certificate. So certified inspectors is what I like to add into the other place there. Obviously, if there's other rhymes and reasons for different people that are working or looking to gain access, I guess, people certified. But anyways, if there's other people in here, you can go ahead and check that box and add in whoever you need to. The following specific marketing tasks will be performed by the broker. Again, for the sake of filling this contract out with you guys, I think I'm just going to put in here, add something. Use AI if you are thinking. So I used to put in all sorts of stuff. This helps me, market myself, really make the seller understand what my marketing plan is. But everyone should be different. So go ahead and just kind of use this template and use this video to kind of understand what I'm talking about when they add something. Seller authorizes the use of videos and photos of both the interior and exterior of the property, with the exception of blank. Sometimes you have religious shrines. Sometimes you will have, egregious posters. You might have things that you don't want to have photographed, but sometimes the seller more than likely may not want something photographed and open to the public. I like to think of like examples in this case. Examples would be gun safe, religious type of effects. Let's just go ahead and say naughty type of things. For all adults here, you're going to see some wild things at listings. I'll tell you that much. But just, sometimes you might not want to, videos or photographs and things, but there are some times that your sellers don't want something in their house to be photographed. Oh, it's that's about all I've ever really been into. Continuing on. No existing listing agreement. Seller represents that the seller is not and has not received a list of other properties. If you're getting into a situation where your seller is being represented by another agent and they're trying to transition over to you or something of that nature, give me a call. There are a lot of things we need to figure out. We need to kind of go through with a fine-tooth comb to see how accurate and relevant, not really relevant, but how accurate and how you can actually slide in and kind of take over for you know, a listing agent that might not be doing the seller justice. Price and terms. So put whatever you want. Put whatever you and the seller are agreeing to. I believe that all properties should probably be able to have cash and conventional selected. It's FHA and VA and the condition of the property that may or may not be selected. So for the sake of the video, I'm just going to go ahead and put, you know, all four. But if you don't know what I'm talking about when you hear this video, if FHA or VA, if the condition of the property, reach out to a lender and just have a conversation about what I'm talking about. They'll gladly explain it to you. And just ask them the condition of the property and why that is more scrutinous with the FHA or VA loan types in the world. Loan discount points, I truly, and I said this in multiple different videos, I don't want to pre-negotiate any dollar amounts for my sellers unless a buyer's going to ask. So I always leave this blank. Buyer's closing costs, again, I'm going to leave this blank because I want a buyer to ask my seller what they really want and need. I don't want to pre-negotiate a dollar amount when I don't even have an offer on the table. Right? We're filling this out to get a property on the market. Earnest money. So use a hard number here, like $10,000, something like that. I'm going to put in here a range. So it's usually 1 to 3% of the purchase price. You know what? I'm going to go ahead and put it section 11.1 so that we that. Seller proceeds. Seller will receive the proceeds as indicated, cashier's check or electronic funds. Don't really care what you select. Just talk to your seller about it. Foreign entity. If your seller is a foreign entity, you must select that checkbox. If they are not, leave that checkbox blank. Inclusions. You know, I'm going to tell you for the sake of, you know, just how to fill this out. Slow down, read it. This is where you're going to put in garage remote controls. If you want a full explanation of me really telling you exactly how to fill these areas out, go over to the contract to buy and sell real estate residential video where I explain all of this in full detail when you're writing a contract, as it looks very identical to what you're looking for. But for the sake of the video, let's put in some things, right? Or for a template, I'm going to put, you know, probably 1 to 3 working remotes for the garage. If you do have any solar panels, water softener systems, security systems, go ahead and select those check boxes. Sometimes you're not going to have any. Other inclusions, this is where I would list, you know, appliances. And maybe the washer, dryer. Also maybe the, you know, wine cooler. And maybe the deep freeze. Just some examples there, but the appliances should be in the kitchen, and then sometimes there's just miscellaneous things throughout the home that would also qualify. Uncovered inclusions, you know, if your seller does, you know, biggest example of solar panels, if they're making solar panel payments, you're going to need to read this to see and understand whether or not your sellers are going to pay that off through the proceeds of their you know, the sale of the home, or if they're going to continue to want to pass the payment down to the buyer. Just make sure you have this filled out in its applicable form for your situation. Same exact conversation with the leased items. Exclusions, you know, I would like to have this conversation with my seller that all sellers' personal possessions will be gone. and that they need to move out by closing. Make sure you have a conversation with them. Sometimes the seller believes that the closing date is when they now need to start packing up, and that's usually not. The buyers are really ready to get in. It's a very unfortunate situation if you ever run into that. So make sure your sellers understand that when that property closes, they should be out unless something else was pre-negotiated. Trade fixtures, this is infrequently used, especially in the residential world, but oftentimes in the commercial world, you'll see that. Sometimes you're going to have, hairdressing chairs. Sometimes you'll have commercial kitchens where somebody maybe caters out of their home, but for the most part, trade fixtures are usually left blank. Trade fixtures to be completed at closing, conveyed by the seller free and clear of all liens and encumbrances except. So this would be a trade fixture that has some sort of lien or encumbrance on it that they're not willing to pay for. Park and storage facilities. This is where you're going to list out, list out the garage types that's applicable to that property. This is going to be where you list out, examples, the barn, chicken coop, Quonset hut, so on and so forth, you name it, etc. Sometimes proper sheds. Sometimes you have these things, sometimes you don't, so it's okay to leave some of this stuff blank. A lot of times people do have a garage, to make sure you get that listed, but if they don't, obviously. Deeded water rights, well rights, water stock, and other. If you start to get into a seller having water rights and you've never dealt with it before, I'm advising you right now in this video, you need to have your seller reach out to a mineral or water right attorney to start getting that understood and how that could be either kept or transferred to the buyer. So for the sake of the video, again, just make sure you're selecting what is applicable. The only thing that we really see more often than water rights or mineral rights is going to be a well right. So if the property does have well, make sure you select that box. And if you know the property's well permit number, go ahead and put it in here. And if you don't know it, TBD is perfectly fine. And again, not all properties have wells, so don't need to select that checkbox if you don't. Title and encumbrances. So with this little section here, I said it in my other video. If you're unaware of what a special warranty deed or general warranty deed is, reach out to the title company and just have a conversation with them. Go through a Title 101 class to understand exactly what these warranties are and how they work. So that way you know exactly how to advise your seller. If you don't know, obviously, you should know because you're helping the seller fill this out. So make a relationship. Can't stress that enough. Make a relationship with some lenders. Make a relationship with some title companies. Make a relationship with some inspectors. It's one of the best things you can do for your career. Monetary encumbrances. This is where you might put the existing loan that the seller has on the property or any other encumbrance. Like it says right here, mortgages, deed of trust, financing statements. So that would be solar panels, mortgages, things of that nature. Tenancies. The property will be conveyed to following leases. So if it's an investment property, you're going to go ahead and list some things out right here. More often than not, I don't see a lot of even investors like to list their property with tenants in it, but some do. Owners association. If it has an association, you're going to fill this stuff out. If it doesn't, just skip on. So the seller represents that the property is or is not located. So if it is, go ahead and select it. If not, obviously it is not. Go ahead and put the dollar amount, and it's either per year, per month. I'm sorry, it's either per month, per quarter, or per annual. Don't use per year, use per annual. Not sure why, it's just what I've always been taught, what I've always done, and what I've always seen. This is where you would probably put any sort of special assessment that the seller is looking to disclose, or right here. This would be a special assessment that just hasn't been paid off. If there is a special assessment that your seller has completely paid in full, you might just have them make you aware of that to make sure the buyer's aware of that, because when the buyer does read through their things, they're going to absolutely look to know where that special assessment sits and how it was paid, or how it's not paid, I guess. So moving along. Possession, talk to your seller. Are they going to be moving out at the date of closing, or are they going to negotiate hopefully some time back in that house? So you're either going to put, you know, upon DOD or delivery of deed, or, you know, maybe it's X amount of days after closing. You guys talk about to your sellers. If you have questions about that, obviously Joanna's here at our office, myself. Thank you guys. Seller's property disclosure form. Sellers should be agreeing to fill that out. Sometimes they don't. You know, if you do get into some pickles with some sellers who don't want to fill out some of these documents, just give me a call. I'll help work through it with you. But obviously, if there's 2 check boxes, they have the right. So most of the time, it's agrees. And then forfeiture of payment. So this is basically saying, hey, look, if the buying side, you know, goes under contract with us, it falls apart, and we as the selling side are awarded the earnest money. Now, that doesn't happen very often, but if we're awarded the earnest money, you're going to distinguish here. Are you going to allow the seller to recoup all of the earnest money? Are you going to split the earnest money between the seller and you? Or are you going to negotiate something different in the other section here? So as far as the sake of the video goes, I'm going to go ahead and select that box. It's not that I'm a proponent of all of it going to the seller. I just don't want to seem like a proponent of splitting it with the seller either. So anyways, make your best judgment and have a conversation. I think that's what the essence of what I'm, you know, I recorded the contract to buy and sell, and you know, I got on my soapbox with a lot of things because I see it between buyers and sellers and arguments and things of that nature, and even agents. When it comes down to this type of contract, this is between me and the seller, and you know, ultimately, how do I say this? I don't want to sound off, but you know, ultimately, we can put in things in this document that could change later, that we definitely might not know. So some of this stuff is really just making sure you have that conversation with the seller, and filling it out the way you see fit. Sometimes your seller might not know what to select or what to do, and so you might leave some things blank and come back to it at a later date and amend the contract. So all I'm trying to get at is it's a lot easier to work with your buyer and your seller around the contracts that you're using, but make sure you have those conversations. That's exactly what this is for. All right. So moving right along to additional provisions, there's usually not a ton of additional provisions to add into an exclusive right to buy or exclusive right to sell. So for the sake of the video, we're going to leave that blank, but every now and then I do advise with certain situations that there would be some additional language in here. I know there are different agents in our office who have pre-templated additional provisions that they like to put into their contracts just to make some sellers be aware of some other things that they do. Attachments, usually there's not a lot of attachments. You know, working with this document, the document kind of spells out everything in my opinion, but there are situations where you might have some things that are attached to the contract depending upon that situation. This just says we can sign electronically. Sometimes people put DocuSign, SkyFlow, whatever contract system they're using in here. I personally, you know, it says I can sign electronically. I don't really put any systems in here, but you're able to. And that brings us down to the end. So thank you guys so much for listening to me with this exclusive right to sell. I'm going to go ahead and save this recording, download the PDF, and get it out to you guys. This would just be where the seller's signature is. I personally don't put in the seller's information here. I just put in the seller's signature and possibly the seller's, you know, printed name. Outside of that, the other piece is your information. And again, this is definitely where you would put in some information as far as, you know, filling out everything. So anyways, that's about it, guys. Have a great day.